emergency operations leadership. We were at Florida Power and Light, looking at their command center, because obviously getting the power back on is going to be very important. Then also went to Central Florida and met with the folks in Orange County. This hurricane, as you know, has been upgraded now to a Category 3. I think most models forecast it to be a very intense storm, most likely a Category 4. You need to be prepared. We're watching these models, and there have been some changes this afternoon with the National Hurricane Center, but really it's still too soon to know precisely where this will strike Florida, and so you need to be ready and take the time to take the precautions necessary to protect yourself and your family. Now, we've been working closely with the local officials, particularly on the east coast of Florida, in the counties that are most likely to be facing the brunt of this storm. Counties like Palm Beach and Martin and Brevard, and regarding their plans for evacuation. And they will be making announcements regarding the execution of those plans tomorrow. And we've appreciated working collaboratively with them because I think it's important that this is a team effort, and that we're working constructively with not only our local partners but with our federal partners. If you are ordered, if you are in an evacuation zone and there's a mandatory evacuation order issued, please heed that call. You're looking at a storm that could produce life-threatening storm surge and major hurricane force winds. There is a danger to your life if you remain in these evacuation zones. So please heed the call. I want to thank some of our neighboring states and other states throughout the country, businesses in other states and individuals who've offered their support. Consumers Energy, which is a Michigan-based company, they're sending crews down to Florida over the weekend in preparation for the hurricane. Ohio Task Force 1 has sent 85 members to conduct searches, including canine search, provide rescue and medical duties, and to help fulfill logistics needs. Encore, which is the largest transmission and distribution electric utility in Texas, has pre-positioned 100 employees and contractors in Florida for assistance with the power and the utilities. New York is sending firefighters to help. Nebraska Public Power District announced Thursday that it's dispatching crews to help Florida's recovery. Delaware-based Delmarva Power and Atlantic City Electric are also dispatching crews. I talked with Kay Ivey, Governor of Alabama. She's authorized National Guard personnel to help our National Guard here. So we really appreciate that. When we were at the Florida Power and Light Command Center, they have brought in between 12 and 14,000 individuals to be pre-positioned and ready so that when the storm passes and power goes out, that they can work hard to get the power back on. We will be having our Department of Transportation working with them to clear any roads that need to be cleared so that the contractors can get where they need to go and help put the power back on. But this is something that we stress with the utilities, the need to be ready and to act quickly, and they are all executing plans, and we appreciate that. I'm also appreciative of our National Guard. They do a profound service to our state, and I'm told that Florida's 53rd Brigade Combat Team with 3,500 troops were recently training for 3 weeks in Mississippi. They returned home and went back to work in their private jobs, as guardsmen do, for a few days, but then yet now they're being called back up to be able to serve during Hurricane Dorian. This is a sacrifice, and we appreciate it, but it's important for the employers of these guardsmen to be flexible in adjusting their work schedules when they're called to duty. This is required by the law here in the state of Florida under statute 250.482. It says employers cannot penalize National Guardsmen and women who are ordered to active duty. So I trust that law will be fuel supply in Florida by allowing additional uses of off-road diesel and allowing fuel stations to sell winter blend fuel. This will allow us to get more fuel in the state faster. Domestic tankers serving Florida operating as scheduled with daily offloads at port around the state. And these operators are in close contact with the Coast Guard and with our emergency response team. Today we began escorts for fuel with the Florida Highway Patrol. So those highway patrolmen were escorting the tankers from Port Everglades to locations in Miami-Dade and in Monroe counties, just because of the logistics with Monroe. And that was that's proven to be a help. We are also bringing in now fuel from out of state, from Louisiana, and then I'm going to work with the federal government to figure out if there's anything else we can do in the short term to help meet the fuel demand here in the state of Florida. The Department of Children and Families received approval today from the USDA to issue SNAP benefits to all recipients who normally receive their benefits between the 1st and 14th of the month. This is an early release of the regular benefits. It's not new money. Lake Okeechobee and the Army Corps of Engineers. The lake is now at 13.6 feet. That's within the current regulation schedule. Obviously, an event like this is going to bring a lot of water. That's going to raise the level of the lake, but really what raises the lake even more than that is the runoff out of Central Florida. So we anticipate seeing the lake rise, and the Army Corps worked very constructively with us in Florida to try to manage that lake in a way that was mitigating some of the environmental damage that had been caused. But at the same time, I mean, they have a regulation schedule, and they're going to take action if need to be based on the level of the lake. We're working with different people in the private sector. Uber has committed to providing rides to shelters as those shelters are opened, and I think you'll be seeing announcements regarding shelters being opened very soon. Comcast is launching 2,000 free mobile hotspots across the state. And then we're working with Gas Buddy with their app and website that details where fuel is needed, and then we're trying to get that information in the right hands so that the gas stations will have what they need. Although it was interesting, we were in Palm Beach. I saw one gas station had a huge line. Across the street there wasn't much of a line. I guess the one with the line was like 20 cents cheaper. So people were waiting in line because they were saving money, which however you want to do it. But we think it's important that people have access to fuel. In terms of generators, we're delivering more than 200 for pre-staging. Our Agency of Healthcare Administration is deploying staff to assisted living facilities in the coastal counties on the East Coast that are likely to be affected, which have not provided updated information on their generator status. And I'd also note some of the counties are doing a good job conducting oversight of this as well. Orange County, they're going to all the assisted living facilities, particularly ones with no data, and they're requesting plans. And a plan is not just we're going to call 911 when the power goes out. I mean, you have to have a plan. So we appreciate them. ACA is also participating in daily calls with the Florida Healthcare Association and all residential and inpatient healthcare facilities, and the Florida Hospital Association and all hospitals. As you know, there have been many school closures announced today. We have an up-to-date website at the Florida Department of Education, www.fldOE.org/hurricaneinfo. And so I just think it's important that as these counties make announcements tomorrow, that folks listen to that and take the necessary steps to protect themselves and their families. This is a potentially big storm, and it can cause a lot of damage. We are monitoring the forecast. We've seen some movement in one direction today, but I would note, I think if you look 3 days before Irma and you look at the track that people had there, I don't think one of them predicted the ultimate path that it took. So, this thing is still something where there's still some level of uncertainty, and you just got to be paying attention, but make the preparations that are necessary. And we're going to be having some more announcements tomorrow morning, and look forward to working with the counties as they execute some of their plans designed to keep their citizens safe. And with that, we're happy to take some questions.
You had mentioned this morning, Governor, there are about 120 nursing homes that have not provided updated information with regard to the status of their generators. What would be an acceptable plan, what would not, and who's making that determination?
Well, they are required to do it by law, and so they're obviously violating the law. I think what ACA is doing is, if we know that there's a place in, say, Brevard County that doesn't have it, and we know Brevard County may be in a situation where they're going to be impacted by the storm and lose power, they're making on-site visits to there, and they need to come up with a plan. Now, there are shelters that will be able to handle some of these folks, but if they have special needs that require different attention, there may not be a shelter that can accommodate that. And so, the folks who are kind of rendering care and are responsible, need to be complying with the law. And so we're going around, we have the information, some of the counties are doing it as well. So there's a lot of focus on this, but you shouldn't even need a lot to do this, quite frankly. I mean, it's the only normal thing to do, that you plan for contingencies, and if you're somebody that has people under your care, if you may lose power in a hurricane, okay? And so how are you going to handle that situation? We do have some of these generators that we're bringing in, and that could be an option if one of them requests it. But I would also say just having the plans, I think, is important, because it requires you to think through the safety of the people that you're protecting.
How many of those 120 facilities that you mentioned this morning have had their generator status established now?
You have to talk to ACA on that. I mean, they're constantly down talking with these folks, and they would have the most updated information on that.
You had mentioned announcements expected tomorrow in Palm Beach, Martin, and Brevard counties. You are anticipating the first evacuations.
So I think it'll be, we've been working closely with Palm Beach, we've worked with Martin, we've worked with St. Lucie, we've worked with Indian River, and we've worked with Brevard, simply because if you look at the storm track, those have seemed to be the areas that have been receiving the most focus from the forecasters. And my view on this is, when people prepare for hurricanes, each county develops their plan with their evacuation zones, and they determine what makes the most sense for their county. So I think it's best for us to work with them for them executing their plans, rather than us come in and say, yeah, you've been practicing that way, but just go do this and do this willy-nilly. I don't think that would be very effective. So we've wanted to work with them, and I think that they've looked at it and made some determinations that'll be announced tomorrow. And then we'll have some announcements as well that will, I think, further help the efforts.
Governor, I know it's still a couple days away, but given that it could be a fairly big storm and impact us a pretty big hit with a big storm surge, what's the thought on search and rescue teams right now, in case anybody doesn't evacuate, and people are living on barrier islands or around the coast?
You want to talk about search and rescue? Jared?
Anyone, yeah.
Sure. So obviously we're using the search and rescue assets that we have within state as first resource. Second is we're EMACing a lot of search and rescue teams, and we've also asked the DOD to also add additional search and rescue. So those teams are all coming in. We have a lot of those assets in state. I mean, these are capabilities that we've been developing year over year with a lot of federal government money that came in as a result of 9/11 dollars that have been flowing into the state since then. So we'll have enough USAR capability between our resources, EMAC, and DOD.
But point is, those are resources that are pretty much going to be needed if people don't evacuate, and it's 3 or 4.
So in addition to the USAR teams, we have high water vehicles. We have 1,000 high water vehicles that the Florida National Guard has. In addition, we've asked for EMAC on high water and for DOD on high water, and obviously we have air assets as well. And I think we're also asking for swift water rescue as well.
Governor, your comment about the guardsmen that are leaving their jobs again to serve the state, and you're hoping that their employers honor the law by allowing them to do that without penalty. Was that just a message that you're hoping they do that, or are you seeing that? Or?
We have received reports that some of the calls to service were not as received warmly by some private employers, and it may have just been a misunderstanding, but I think it's important just to be very clear about what the state law is and what the state policy is, but also just to shine light on the fact that you got guys that have been away for 3 weeks training. Now they're told to get back in the saddle. We should be thanking them for doing that and not giving them grief at their jobs.
Governor, just as you have put so many people here, and we've got the Emergency Operations Center manned, each of us in our newsrooms have newsrooms that are ready to be engaged in this as well. And one of the things that we need is good and constant real-time information. But your staff has not allowed us to get access to the information that is coming out of here from the briefings. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to open that up and make it accessible so that we can deliver information swiftly to the public as you have it.
Well, I'm not sure what information you're talking about. I mean, Jared is pushing out a lot of information. Obviously, if they're meeting and they're trying to make determinations on policy internally or figuring out how to use resources, not all of that is necessarily right for a public airing in a public setting.
Let me just
And I
clarify.
think that's if that's the case. I mean, I know that.
Yeah, we understand that. It's just that under the Jeb Bush administration, the Charlie Crist administration, when we had nearly a dozen hurricanes in that time period, they always opened up the briefing, and the briefing is just a straight up presentation of the information that they've accumulated at 8:30 and 6 p.m. All we want to do is to be able to hear that in real time, and it's
So
not
that's
because
Jared's
they're-
briefing, or whose briefing
No,
are you
it's
talking
the,
about?
it's the briefing right behind you. That's why we have this room here. That's the precedent that's been established, and we're just.
Well, we'll look at it. I mean, quite frankly, that's not been my top concern, just given all the stuff that's going on.
But
So
we're
I'll
here
talk to him, and we'll look.
We're here
I
to help
appreciate the
too.
role, but I also I understand some of the issues that go with these. I think we've had history in the state of folks who believe a lot of the stuff that we're saying about the danger is overblown. And I think that there's been a cost to that. I'm not saying it's your fault, but I just think generally so. But I'll look at it. It wasn't any policy I did. I think that's just kind of how it's been set up. And I'll talk to Jared and we'll let you know. But I mean, generally speaking, if there's information that the public needs, we want to get it out to people. I mean, that's a no-brainer in my judgment. All right, thanks. We're going to be here tomorrow morning. We'll see you guys.